What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Pioneer video. And this week, I don't know if the deck we're looking at is all that good, honestly, but it was one of the decks that caught my eye during the NRG series in Chicagoland. It was during the, obviously, Pioneer event, and in one of the few rounds that I was able to watch, it was probably one of the weirdest decks that I've seen. It's something that I've heard people talk about. I've seen it kind of like rough draft versions of it, but the deck was kind of sweet, and I wanted to highlight it this week really. So let's go ahead and take a look at Grinning Ignus combo for the Pioneer format, dive in, see exactly how it works, and just kind of look at this beautiful mess of a deck. So let's go ahead, jump over, take a look at the deck. So here we have the Grinning Ignus deck for the Pioneer format, piloted by Raymond Perez. Took it to a 4-3-1 finish at the Chicagoland Pioneer event, the 10K trial for the NRG series. Before we get too deep into the deck and dive into this crazy combo, if you like my videos and you want to see more like this, please consider subscribing to the channel, ringing the notification bell, and of course, leaving a like on the video. It's a free, easy way to support me and my content and really keeps me pumping out these videos. And of course, I have a link in the description to the Discord server, so if that's something that interests you, go ahead, follow that link, shoot over, talk about some magic and stuff like that. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at Grinning Ignus combo. The main part of the Grinning Ignus combo, really two parts, is two creature cards. You have Burgi, God of Storytelling, which is also Harnfell, Horn of the Bounty, but really the important part is the front side. So Burgi says whenever you cast a spell, you add a red mana, and until end of turn, you do not lose this mana as steps and phases end. Creatures you control can boast a second or can boast twice during each of your turns rather than once. The first ability infinitely more important than the second one for a card called Grinning Ignus. Grinning Ignus is a 3 mana 2/2 that has red. You can return it to its owner's hand to add 2 colorless mana and a red mana. You can activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So essentially, the combo being is if you have a Burgi in play and you have a Grinning Ignus, you cast Grinning Ignus, Burgi gives you a red mana. You can return the Grinning Ignus with the red mana, adding 2 colorless and a red, which means that you can cast the Grinning Ignus again, get a red mana, so on and so forth. So essentially, you've established this loop to where you can infinitely cast Grinning Ignus. So what the heck can you do with that? So since Grinning Ignus is an elemental, one thing you can do is just get a bunch, or rather infinite Risen Reef triggers, to where you could eventually just put a bunch of lands into play. You can essentially set up your hand to kind of get to a point where you can like untap and kill your opponent. There's Prosperous Innkeeper. You can gain infinite life this way, which I would believe for a lot of the Pioneer decks is essentially impossible for them to beat, minus like the mono green uh, devotion decks. You have Fauna Shaman, which doesn't necessarily go like infinite or whatever with Grinning Ignus Burgi combo, but this is a way that you can kind of tutor up some of your other creatures. One of the important ones being Defiler of Instinct, which is another way that you can essentially kill your opponent. So it's a 4 mana 4/4 with first strike. As an additional cost to cast red permanent spells you control, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost red less to cast if life was paid this way, and this effect only reduces the amount of red mana you pay. Whenever you cast a red permanent spell, Defiler of the Instinct deals 1 damage to any target. So essentially, you don't have to pay life to get the effect. So you could just cast your Grinning Ignus a million times with your Burgi, and every time you cast a spell, you deal 1 damage to your opponent. If you do not have the red mana for whatever reason, you can just, float the red mana and then just keep having mana floating, and then eventually, if your life total is higher than your opponent, kind of like the Yawgmoth combo, which I've gone over about a million times if you want to check those videos out as well, you can kill your opponent that way. You have Devilish Valet, which is a trample haste that doubles each time a creature enters the battlefield or another creature enters the battlefield. So you can also just make it really big and then one-shot your opponent that way. Runaway Steamkin is another way that you could generate mana and then end up casting some of your other spells. You have Eldritch Evolution to go search up your Burgi, which you can do off of like your Elvish Mystics and Llanowar Elves, even like your Fauna Shamans and Prosperous Innkeepers and so on. You have Collected Company. A lot of your spells, minus your Defiler, are 3 or less. So even just getting like value hits like Risen Reef and a Grinning Ignus, or Risen Reef and a Prosperous Innkeeper are fine because you're going to be able to generate some amount of card advantage that way. And of course, even just hitting those, if you already have the Ignis in your hand, you can just kind of start gaining life and getting Risen Reef triggers. The beauty of this deck, oh, there's 4 Hazardous Monument. That's kind of a weird card. Makes your red creature spells cost 1 less, and whenever you cast a red creature spell, you can discard a card if you do draw a card. Another way that you can kind of like churn through your deck, and of course, if you have Burgy Grinning Ignis, you can essentially net infinite colorless mana or colorless mana for the amount of times that you cast your Grinning Ignis. The beauty of this deck is that it is not totally all in on Burgy plus Grinning Ignis. Uh, Essentially for every red mana you can cast a Grinning Ignis, which means that like you could just deal damage with Defiler of Instincts that many times. You can Risen Reef the number of times equal to the number of red mana that you have. Of course, gain life with Prosperous Innkeeper or Innkeepers that way, trigger Runaway Steamkins, so on and so forth. It is definitely a thing that you can do. Steamkin also, if you do not have a Burgy, if you can get up to 3 counters with Runaway Steamkin, you can just eventually go infinite that way. Obviously not working very well for you if you don't have anything like Risen Reef, Devilish Valet, kind of helping you get to a point where you can just end the game on the spot. The mana base, pretty simple in my opinion. You have 4 Stomping Ground, you have the 4 Botanical Sanctum, 4 Bluff Canal. These lands super important because your deck is super heavy in green and red. So having just these spells that come into play untapped for green mana, of course giving you the blue to be able to cast like Risen Reefs and stuff, while still maintaining double green to be able to cast Eldritch Evolutions in your Land of War Elves, Elvish Mystics on turn 1. You have some Besagus. I'm sure to deal with like some of the Karn shenanigans that are going on, the Greasefang decks and of the sort. You have Carplusion Forest, which is another green source that will come into play. Hopefully, just deals you 1 or 2 damage. Mana Confluence, just to kind of color fix your mana, and a Montana, of course, to kind of round out your mana base because you want as many red sources as possible to be able to activate Grinning Ignis a ton if you don't have a Burgy in play. The sideboard, you have Rending Volleys. These are just easy ways to deal with some of the creatures from the Is It Phoenix side, which actually came in clutch in game 2 of this match, where the opponent got to, or Raymond Perez got to actually kill his opponent's thing in the ice with a Rending Volley, and it was not able to be countered by spells or abilities. So Spell Pierce, get the heck out of here. Rending Volley does not care. Tamiyo's Safekeeping is a way just to give something, a permanent of yours, hexproof and indestructible until the turn. Gaining 2 life can be a way that you can kind of race slash hedge some bets against some of the more aggressive decks like the Atarka red decks, mono red, so on and so forth, while also protecting against removal and even mouse removal as well from some of the other like more mid-rangey slash control decks. You have a Braids that get to pull double duty against like Mono White and against Greasefang and be able to blow up the vehicles, while also getting to handle the board as well if you're playing against more aggressive decks. You have Outland Liberator, another card that you can kind of tutor up with like Eldritch Evolution, hit with Collected Company, and also just get to pay mana to blow something up. Or if you're able to be patient, just flipping on the other side, being able to get aggressive and just blow up your opponent's enchantments as well, while also getting to still have that pay 1, sacrificing it to blow something up. You have Scavenging Ooze to kind of mess with the graveyard, especially in the Is It Phoenix matchups. Is like the main thing. Of course, there is some other graveyard decks floating around which Scavenging Ooze can deal with, and in some of the grindier matchup as well. Playing against some of the other creature decks, Scavenging Ooze can just get bigger than most of the things in play, while also buffering your life total. Cemetery Prowler is another way that you could actually make Grinning Ignises cheaper, but and also get to mess with your opponent's graveyard and get to make card types that you exile. Cost 1 less to cast for each one they share. Exile with Cemetery Prowler, which is where the benefit of making Ignises, making Eldritch Evolutions collected companies cheaper. Also, having Vigilance allows it to be very aggressive, mess with your opponent's graveyard, and put some pressure on their life total, while also getting to sit back and play defense as well, with having 4 toughness being super huge and 3 power, getting to deal with a lot of some of the other aggressive creatures in the format. And then finally, you have Outpost Siege. I would imagine more than likely choosing dragons, because whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, leaving the battlefield being the important distinction, the creature doesn't have to die or whatever. So there's the act of picking up Grinning Ignus. You get to deal 1 damage to any target, shotgun your opponent's board if you can't target your opponent, or just go straight to the face. I've heard the saying, face is the place, and Outpost Siege loves going there. You can also play this as a more like aggressive draw option, where at the beginning of your upkeep you can exile the top card of your library, and until end of turn you may play that card. So you can play like lands, you can play other spells and stuff that come off the top. Definitely making it a lot easier to kind of like outgrind your opponent when you're getting to draw 2 cards a turn, and you're actually able to have access to that card as well. And yeah, that's the Grinning Ignus deck for Pioneer. This deck is very interesting. I don't know if it's like the best combo deck to be playing in the Pioneer format, but it's definitely a nice change of pace from um, the Lotus Field decks that you have running around, the Greasefang decks, the Blue-Red Phoenix, Mono Green, Mono White, Mono Red, Autarka, so on and so forth. All the decks that we've kind of become accustomed to for the Pioneer format. And who knows, this deck might have its day in the sun, might get a better finish than 4-3-1. I thought the deck was at least really sweet. It was doing something very unique compared to like what the rest of the field was doing. So it was a nice change of pace getting to watch some Pioneer action and watching a deck that wasn't any of the aforementioned decks that I had just mentioned. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on the video, and of course consider subscribing to the channel and ring the notification bell so you can support my content. It's a free, easy way to do so. Keeps me making videos like this and for the modern format as well. And of course, if you're interested, please consider joining the Discord server. Link is in the description. Go ahead and follow that and go ahead and join. So yeah, that's going to do it for me this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next one.